Welcome back to Fairies Tutorials. Now, in today's episode, we'll be looking at a particular topic, one that prevents food spoilage, allows food to be available in other territories that are not locally grown, to avoid waste, and also to make food be a form of convenience and easy to prepare, to make foods available when they're out of season. Now, can you guess which topic we'll be looking at in today's session? If your answer is food preservation, you are correct. Stay tuned. Section 4, Food Science and Technology. In today's episode, we'll be looking at Content 7 and Content 8, which is entitled Food Preservation. Now, focus points. In today's episode, we'll be looking at terms that are associated with food preservation. We'll also be looking at the reasons for preserving foods, the principles on which methods of food preservations are based, and also the different methods of preserving foods. Now, it is very important for us to set the foundation, right? And in setting today's foundation, we'll be looking at 3 terms that are associated with food preservation. Now, we have sterilization, pectin, and also blanch. Now, based on these images that are displayed on your right, are you able to tell which picture denotes which term? So let us see what we're seeing here. So on your right, you're seeing some green beans in a pot. Then you see ice water bath. The beans are then plunged into the ice water bath, and then we're seeing that they're zipped locked. The other image denotes a pot of boiling water with some jars in it. And then the picture below have what? Some fruits that we may say what? Are tangy in flavor, right? And we also see some commercial packages there. Now guys, are you able to formulate the definitions for these terms based on the images that are being displayed? Move on and see if what you have formulated is indeed accurate. Let's go. So the first term that we're looking at is sterilization. Now the term sterilization denotes the complete destruction of microorganisms by heat. Good. Did you got that one correct? Now the next one that we'll be looking at is pectin. This is a gelatin-like carbohydrate obtained from certain underripe fruits used to thicken jams and jellies, right? Did you get this one correct, right? Now, you may find that other fruits may have pectin content, but the fruits with the highest amount of pectin content that are used for thickening jams and jellies, it's best to use the fruits that are just underripe. And as you can see in that image, you also notice that you have some packaged stuff, right? So we have commercial pectin, and we also have pectin that comes naturally from the fruits that aids in the thickening of jams and jellies. Now the next term that we'll be looking at is blanching. Now, blanching may be defined as a cooking process where the food, usually a vegetable, is scalded in boiling water, removed after a brief time interval, and finally plunged into ice water or placed under cold running water. And this process is called shocking. And the process of shocking, guys, is to halt the cooking process of the vegetable that is being blanched. Now you may be wondering, what are some of the purposes of blanching? Let us look at these 3. So 1, to loosen peel from vegetables. 2, to remove undesirable flavors. Or 3, to prepare food for freezing. And freezing is a form of preservation, right? Thus, we're preventing food spoilage. Now, let us look at the overall reasons for preserving food. We looked at some at the beginning of the video, right? Do you remember what they are, or do you have some additional reasons that you know about? Right? Let us move on to see if what I have is actually what you were thinking about. So the main reason for preservation is to prolong the shelf life of food. Today, food is preserved for a variety of reasons, which includes to make foods available when they're out of season. 2, to make food available to other territories, foods not normally found in their country. Can you think of any food that is available out here that is not locally grown, but because of food preservation, it is available in our country or in your country? Also, to make a variety of foods available all year round so as to prevent nutritional imbalance. Next, convenience frozen and canned foods are quick and easy to prepare. To prevent waste by making use of foods when they are plentiful and cheap, and also to store them for later use. I've looked at the terminologies that are associated with food preservation and also the reasons for preserving food. Let us now explore the principles on which food preservation methods are based. Methods used for preserving food are based on general principle of preventing or retarding the causes of spoilage, right? And in previous episodes, we looked at food spoilage and also the different causes of food spoilage, right? The growth of microorganisms must be halted. This can be achieved by removing some of the conditions necessary for their growth. Now, what are some of the conditions that are necessary for microorganisms to grow or reproduce? You remember that session we looked at foodborne illnesses and also food spoilage? So we speak of time, temperature, warmth, and also moisture, right? Now, the following scientific principles form the basis of all methods of preservation. So the first scientific principle that we'll be looking at is removal of moisture. Now, this can be done by applying heat and allowing the water to evaporate. Adding sugar or salt also has the same effect of pulling the moisture from foods, right? Now, since the sugar or salt concentration is more concentrated than the solution inside the cell, water passes out of the cell through the process of osmosis and is replaced by the sugar or salt solution, and therefore the cell becomes dehydrated. Now guys, can you think of any food product on the market where you notice that the moisture content has been altered? Which product on the market do you notice that sugar and salt are used to preserve? Can you identify any? Well, as we go on further in today's session, we'll look at the different examples. Now, the next principle that we'll be looking at is altering the temperature. So either decreasing or increasing the temperature can prevent microbial growth. So we may speak of refrigeration or chilling, and this should be at a temperature of 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And we also speak of freezing, which must be at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Also, on the heat side, we'll be looking at what? Pasteurization and sterilization. Now, this is where food is held at a high temperature for a specific period of time. Good? The next principle that we'll be looking at is altering the pH, right? And when we speak of pH, for those of you who have a background in science, what are we speaking of? right? Now, the pH of food may be lowered so that the food environment becomes too acidic for microorganisms to grow. For example, pickling, and the acid that is used there is the vinegar. Now, can you think of some of the products that are pickled, right? And here we have a nice example of what? Pickled peppers. The next principle is exclusion of oxygen. Now, this only prevents the growth of molds and aerobic bacteria. Therefore, this method can only be successful if it is used with another method such as heating, as in canning or even freezing. Now, what are some of the food products you may see in the supermarkets where all the air has been removed from the product? So we have some examples here on your right where we speak of vacuum packing, right? So they exclude all the oxygen or the air from the product to help to prevent the growth of pathogenic microorganisms, right? And remember, this product has to be used with another method of preservation. So it may be canning, it may be freezing, or it may even be dehydration. Now, the next principle that we'll be looking at is the use of chemicals. Now, a number of chemicals can be used to halt the growth of microorganisms. They are antioxidants, sodium chloride, commonly known as common salt, acids, which includes ethanoic acid, which is from vinegar, and also citric acid, nitrates and nitrites, sulfur dioxide, and also sugar. Now, the next principle that we'll be looking at is irradiation. This is one of the most recent methods used to reduce foodborne pathogens and to extend the shelf life of foods. Now, food products that have gone through the process of irradiation will have this symbol, as you can see down at the end of your screen, that green symbol displayed on the. We have looked at the definitions, the reasons for preserving foods, and also the principles on which food preservation methods are based. It is now time for us to explore the methods of food preservation. Good? Now, there are different methods of destroying or retarding the action of enzymes and microorganisms in food. Examples of these are heat preservation, dehydration, cold preservation, or we may say refrigerating and freezing, addition of chemical preservatives, and also the removal of air through packaging or modify atmosphere packaging. Now, let us look at these methods in details. First up, let us look at heat preservation. And for heat preservation, there are 4 different methods. There are sterilization, pasteurization, ultra heat treatment, and also canning and bottling. Now, what is pasteurization? This involves heating items such as milk below its boiling point, but at a temperature sufficient to kill pathogenic organisms. Examples of products include milk and milk products, wine, fruit juices, beers, and also vegetable juices. Sterilization refers to foods, especially milk, which is heated in sealed containers at a high temperature, right? We also have the containers that are sterilized, or for example, in the making of jams and jellies, all those jars and lids have to be sterilized to kill the microorganisms that will cause food spoilage. Good. The next method of heat preservation is canning and bottling. Now, these are based on the principle that food is sealed in a can or bottle and then heated to such a temperature that all harmful microorganisms capable of growth during storage of the can or bottle at normal temperature are killed, right? And remember, when we speak of the scientific principle on which the methods are based, and we speak of the removal of oxygen, right? Canning and bottling would have been an example of what? Of the removal of oxygen. But you notice that it's also used with a combination method such as heating, right? Good. Next, use of canning. Some examples of food products that are canned are fruits, milk, vegetable, sausages, nuts, soups, pasta and pulses in sauces, meat, and also fish, and you may be able to think of others. Examples of uses of bottling includes fruits, vegetables, and also fruit juices. And we may speak of also sauces. Good. Now, the next method of preservation is dehydration. Food preservation by dehydration, that is, drying, is based on the principle that microbial growth and chemical reactions can occur only when sufficient water is available. Examples of products are milk. Can you think of milk that has been hydrated? If powdered milk comes to mind, you're correct. We speak of coffee, herbal teas, fish and meat such as with salt fish, vegetables, pulses which are peas and beans, and also soups, instant soups, snacks, and other type of meals. Now, the next method of preservation is refrigeration and freezing. Lowering the temperature prevents microorganisms from multiplying and reduces enzyme activity. In a domestic refrigerator, foods remain at a temperature of about 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 5 degrees Celsius. Freezing. The domestic freezer will freeze foods for safe storage at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 18 degrees Celsius for up to 1 year, depending on the type of food. Most microbial growth is halted at 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which is negative degrees Celsius, but once the food is defrosted, growth begins again. Commercial methods of freezing. We're going to look at 3 commercial methods, and the first one is plate freezing. And as you can see, this is an example on your right of what the plate freezer looks like, right? So food is packed in trays which are inserted between plates, cooled by a cold circulating fluid in a large cabinet. And this is an example of what it looks like. Now, the next example is blast freezing, right? And this uses a blast of cold air either in a cabinet or a tunnel. The next one is cryogenic freezing, also known as immersion freezing, where food is immersed into very cold liquid and liquid nitrogen is also added for instant freezing. The next we'll be looking at is addition of chemical preservatives. Chemical preservatives include salt, sugar, vinegar, antioxidants, sulfur dioxide, nitrates, and also nitrites. Good. The addition of salt and sugar to a food reduces the moisture available to the microorganisms by osmosis. The next one we'll be looking at is removal of air through vacuum packing. Now the next method of preservation is removal of air. Oxygen is removed to prevent reactions from occurring during storage. The process involves putting the product in a flexible film pouch, usually with a layer of foil in the film, pulling a vacuum and then sealing the pouch. Now let us do a quick review. The methods of preservation are heat preservation, where we speak of sterilization, pasteurization, ultra heat treatment, and also the method of bottling and canning. We also looked at the method of dehydration, and this involves the removal of moisture from the food product, and this includes like fruits, such as when we look at raisins that are dried, that comes from the fresh fruit grape. We looked at fresh fish. We may find an example of fresh fish where salt is added to the fish to remove the moisture, so we speak of saltfish, right? We also spoke of cold preservation or refrigeration and freezing, where certain food items have to be stored at the appropriate temperature in the refrigerator or the freezer, right? And things that may be stored in the refrigerator may include vegetables, fruits, right? And things that are stored in the freezer are foods that are highly perishable. So we speak about meat, poultry, fish, etc., right? Also, the addition of chemical preservatives, and the chemicals that we refer to are salt, right, as is used in saltfish. We speak of sugar that is used in jam making and also to make tambourine balls, and we can also speak of vinegar, right, that is used to make pickles. Good. There is also antioxidants that are used in margarine. Good. We also looked at the removal of air through packaging or modified atmosphere packaging, and this may refer to the packages that are vacuumed packed, such as deli meats, such as sausage, ham, some pickled products as well. Lately I've been seeing like salt mackerel in vacuum packing. And remember that we have microorganisms that are anaerobic, right? Aerobic and anaerobic. So if we're using the removal of air through vacuum packaging or canning or bottling, it is very important for us to use another method of preservation so that method can be effective. Because guess what? We cannot vacuum pack, say for example, the sausage and leave it at room temperature, can we? No, we cannot. So therefore, we have to use that with a combination of freezing, good, and also other additives, chemical additives such as the nitrates and the nitrites that are added to those deli meats as well, will serve as a form of food preservation. Activity. Define the following terms: pectin, sterilization, and let me also add blanching as a bonus. Explain 4 reasons for preserving food. Outline at least 4 principles on which methods of food preservations are based and give example of each principle. List at least 4 methods of preserving foods. Good luck!